Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya
Shankaracharya
Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Katvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, on that sat. So we had finished, I think, the 12th mantra of the second section of the first chapter. So please unmute yourself and we can chant the 13th mantra. Etat Shrutva Samparigraha Smartyah Samparigraha Pravarhya Dharmyam Anumetamapya Samodate Modaniyagam Hilabdva Vivritagam Sadmanachiketa Sammanye. So I'll just mute you. Right. So he says, this is still, who is talking right now? You don't know, right? Okay, he's talking to Nachiketa. So he says, look at the words. He says, Shrutva etat, having listened to this, what happens? Martyaha, the mortal, the jiva, Samparigraha clearly understands etam anum dharmyam. Dharma is here is Atma. Anu means subtle. Etam anum dharmyam. This very subtle Atma is understood. And what does that understanding consist of? Pravriyaha. Pravriyaha, separation. Separation of the Atma from the body. And apya, when he claims it. And labdva, having obtained this, modaniyam saha modate. This labdva modaniyam. Modaniyam is the source of ananda, source of moda, source of joy. So having obtained this atma, samodatehi, he rejoices indeed. And manye, I think, sadma vivratam nachiketasam. Nachiketasa, I think that sadma. Sadma is the gate for Brahma Loka of a Brahman itself. Vivratam is open. So he says, hey Nachiketas, this gate of Brahman is now open to you. Which means he's going to start teaching. So what does this mantra define? It defines the Jnana Yoga mentioned, the Adhyatma Yoga mentioned in the previous mantra. So he says, Etat Shrutva, which indicates what? Shravanam. Shrutva is using the ears, listening to, so Shravanam. So Yamaraj is indicating what is the procedure to be followed. Etat Shrutva, go to an Acharya and listen. And in Gita we saw, Tadvidhi Pratipateta. Go there and listen to the teacher. What does the teacher do? Etam anum pravariyaha. So this most subtle Atma, very, very subtle. It's not a gross object. Hence anu. Anu literally means atom. Very, very tiny one. And it is used here in the term of subtle. So pravarya, the Atma, may you separate it from the Anatma. Why is the separation necessary? Because in the Jiva, the Atma and Anatma are mixed. Throughout the three bodies, the Atma is present. So all Shariram, all Anatma, in and through all of them, Atma, the consciousness principle, is present. And therefore, if you remember the 5 principles we have often talked about, the 5 descriptions, Atma is not a part, not a product, nor a property of the body. Atma is an independent, invisible entity, giving life, giving sentience to the body by the mere presence, by its mere presence. Atma is not limited by the spatial boundaries of the body. Atma does not die when the body dies, meaning that it is not limited by the temporal boundaries also. And then the surviving Atma, the surviving consciousness, cannot be recognized after the body is gone, because the body is a reflecting medium. And without a reflecting medium, the reflection cannot be recognized. So these five properties, having understood, so he says dharmyam. Dharmyam is basically talking about Atma. Why does he use the word dharma? Because dharma is here tantamount to Veda Pramanam. And therefore, dharma is whatever is revealed by the Veda Vakya, by the Veda statements, whatever is revealed is called dharma. And what is revealed by the Veda Vakyam? The Atma is revealed. And therefore, Atma is known as dharmyam over here. And pravarya, separation of that body from the Atma, that is a mental process. There is no physical separation. So that is the Shravanam part of it. All that takes place through Shravan. And the next step that Yamaraj is indicating is Mananam. So he says Samparigraha. Clearly understand without doubts. So Samshaya Rahita Jnanam should be there. Elimination of all doubts in my intellect about the Atma. I should understand that all Anatma is in multiple pieces. Anatma is plural, but Atma is non-dual. There's only one Atma. It is only appearing as multiple Anatma. So it's one Atma spread all over, enveloping all the Anatma, just like the sunlight spreads over all the objects and reveals them. So this is one of those similarities. Sunlight is ekam, one, but the objects which the sunlight reveals, they are multiple. Similarly, Chaitanyam, the consciousness, the Atma is ekam. And the Anatma that this Chaitanyam reveals, they are multiple. So all this understanding has to be extremely clear. So you have Mananam, you have, before that you have Shravanam. Shravanam was indicated by what word? Pravarya. Segregation of the body from the mind, from the Atma. Segregation of the body and the Atma, mental status, that is Pravarya. Mananam is Samparigraha. Clearly understand, eliminating all doubts. Then comes Nididhyasana. So here the word you look at is Apya. The second line, Dharmyam Anumetam Apya. So the Pravarya is in the second line, the first word. Pravarya Dharmyam Anumetam Apya. The Pravarya indicates Shravanam. In the first line, Etat Shrutva. So you have to actually connect Etat Shrutva Pravarya. Having understood, having listened to the teacher, Pravarya. One should mentally separate the Atma and the Anatma. And then Samparigraha. One should be clear of all doubts, clearly understand. And after having done both these, then Etam Apya. This Anum Etam Apya. This very subtle Atma Apya. Apya literally means to hold or to reach. So here it means claiming. You should claim that Atma as yourself. We should remember that all bodily identification, so Deha Abhimana as we call it, all bodily identification is the reason for your relationships. Any family Abhimanam, any identification with the family or your friends, all this is primarily based on your identification with your body. So a very important idea is being conveyed. All relationships that I have today, whether it be my mother or my father or my child or my friends or my relatives, they are all through the physical body alone. There is no relationship between Sukshma Shariram and Sukshma Shariram. Basically, it is only the physical body relationships. I use that body for interacting with, serving and loving my friends and family members. But you should not claim this body as yourself. And once you don't claim the body as yourself, you will not be claiming your family members and your friends as mine. So Mamakara and Ahankara both go together. Ahankara is claiming the body as yourself. Once having claimed the body as yourself, that Ahankara leads to claiming of your friends and family members as mine. So Mamakara it leads to. So Ahankara leads to Mamakara. And here he is saying that you should not do. Who does all this claiming? So that is the first word, the last word of the first line, Martyaha, the one who is a mortal one. Martyaha means the person subject to mortality, who is the spiritual seeker, the sadhaka. Okay. So up to here is the Jnana Yoga section, which we said also Adhyatma Yoga. Then he says Samodate, that person who has become a Jnani through this process, he rejoices. Why does he rejoice? Because he has understood the law of karma. He knows there is nothing random in the universe. He has no worries because whatever is happening according to the law of karma. So there's another aspect of a jnani. He learns to look upon the entire creation as the body of Easwaran. Remember, all our own worries are centered around what? Around ahankara, my own body, my sense organs, my mind. Whenever I'm centered on myself, which is ahankara, my BMSC, my body, mind, sense complex, there will be worries. But when I have identified with Ishvara himself, then I take the whole creation as my body. And therefore, Modaniyam. Modaniyam is the source of Ananda, the source of permanent happiness. And therefore, having said that, he labdva, he has gained that instrument of permanent happiness. And therefore, Yamraj says, Vivritagam sadma nachiketasam manye. Hey Nachiketas, for you, the door to Brahman is open. The door to moksha is open. So sadma is the door or the path. Vivritam is open. So sadma vivritam, the door is open. Hey Nachiketasam, hey Nachiketas manye. I think so. Okay. So up to here, the teaching has not started as all. It's just going on and going on and going on. Okay. And Nachiketa is getting impatient. So the next verse, he repeats his question, slightly modified. First, he had given a question. What was the question? Do you remember? Anybody? Can you put that question of Yamraj of Nachiketas in one line? What was the question that Nachiketas asked? Very short definition. We are all talking about Nachiketas' question being replied to, right, by Yamraj. We should know what the question was. What is the question? Nobody? Guys? You can't come to Upanishad class without the...
Chetas wanted to know who is to ask Yamaraja to teach him that thing that by knowing that thing, everything else is known.
Not exactly. The question was not like that. What was the question?
Didn't you want to say what happens to the person after death?
Exactly. So that was exactly the question. Because he says, what happens to the person after death? That was the question. And Yamaraj is now replying to all that. Okay, so we will chant the verse number 14. Anyatra dharmad, anyatra dharmad.
Anyatra dharmad, anyatra dharmad.
Anyatrasmat krita kritat.
Anyastatmat kritat.
Anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha.
Anyatra bhutascha bhavyascha.
Yattat pashyasi tadvad.
Yattat pashyasi tadvad.
So this is, you have to add here. Nachiketasam ovacha or Nachiketasa ovacha. Nachiketas is repeating his question, but in a more refined form. Earlier, as Nataraji pointed out, he said that what is it that survives the death of the body? Now he is refining that question because he feels in the light of the earlier discussions, the earlier mantras that Lord Yamaraj had given, he feels that that question was perhaps a little bit immature. So he refines that question. So he says Tatvadu, the last word of the mantra, Tadvadu, Tatvadu, tell me that. What is that? Then he says Yat tat pashyami. That is the second last word. Yat tat pashyami. So yat tat pashyami tadvad. Tell me yat tat pashyami, what you see. So that whole those two words, yat tat pashyami tadvad, is the request. Hey Yamraj, please tell me what is it that you see. As what? Then you go to the first line. Anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat. So if you look at the word, it is anyatra dharmat, anyatra dharma. And when you break it up, anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat. So what do you see? Dharmat anyatra, as different from dharma, and also adharmat anyatra, as different from adharma. So, hey Yamraj, tell me what is it that you consider as different from dharma and different from adharma also. And anyatra, also different, asmat krita akritat. So krita akritat is broken into krita akritat. That I'll explain. Anyatra bhuta bhavya cha. So bhutat, anyatra bhutat, different from the past. Anyatra bhavyach, different from the future. Yat tat pashyasi tadvad. Please tell me what you see as different from all these three things. So it's a very important mantra, though it is in the form of a question. Nachiketas' maturity can be judged by the fact that this mantra is often taken as the definition of Atma itself. So Nachiketas' question itself defines the Atma. But he has not fully understood, but he knows it is like this. And this is a very important mantra. It is very often quoted to establish that moksha cannot be obtained through karma or upasana, or karma and upasana together. Okay, now to come back to Nachiketas' original question. What survives after the death of the physical body? What survives? You guys are all advanced, what they call Vedantics by now. So there are 4 things which survive the death of the physical body. What are they? Anybody?
Sukshma Shariram,
Yes.
Karana Shariram,
Yes. And 2 very obvious things.
Atma, of course.
Atma, of course, and one very important thing missed out. So you said 3 things: the subtle body, the causal body, and the Atma. What survives? What else survives?
Sanchita Karma.
No. So I'll give the Atma another name, then you'll get the hint. Atma is called OC. What survives? What else survives? We are saying that subtle body, causal body, and OC survives. What else survives?
RC.
RC survives,
RC.
obviously, because where OC is there and where subtle bodies are there, subtle and causal bodies are there, the reflection has to be there. So there are 4 things: subtle body, causal body, RC, and OC. All these survive. Now, which one is Nachiketas asking about? He's asking about OC, the original consciousness. Chit Rupa Atma. That is the definition by Nachiketas in this verse. And the definition is so brilliant, coming from a student who's asking about it, that it has become a very important mantra and is taken as definition of Atma itself. Of course, in many ways, we can't define Atma, but as much as it can be defined, this is one of those mantras which is often quoted. So, look at the words. Anyatra dharma, anyatra adharma. So, here dharma is the punyam, the adrishta phalam of good karma. So, punyam means meritorious consequences of good karma. So, there is dharma means punyam, adrishta phalam of good karma, and adharma means papam, adrishta phalam of bad karma. Adrishtam means what? Invisible. And therefore, dharma means the invisible punyam, which is the consequence of good karma. Adharma means the invisible papam, which is the consequence of bad karma. These are the karanam, the causes. And these can be experienced only when they are converted into favorable and unfavorable situations. Only when a situation comes which results in either pain or pleasure to you, then only is this punyam or papam being utilized, being exhausted. Okay. Now, how much time will it take for some punyam which is generated today to be actually experienced? This conversion time cannot be known. It can vary from karma to karma. It can vary from janma to janma also. So we have no way of knowing which punyam or papam will fructify today or tomorrow or in the next birth or after 20 births. And therefore, this verse means that Atma is not affected by punyam and papam. So, anyatra dharma, anyatra adharma. That Atma, which is beyond the effects of punyam and beyond the effects of papam. That is the meaning of the first sentence. And a corollary from there is, therefore, through karma, one can never get moksha. Why? Because karma gives you only punyam and papam. And because of the first quarter of this mantra, which says anyatra dharmat and anyatra adharmat, that Atma which is beyond the effects of punyam and papam. A straight corollary here is that Atma cannot be known or moksha cannot be obtained through karma, because karma can give you only punyam and papam. How then can you obtain moksha? Only through jnana. So karma phalam punya papam, jnana phalam is what? Moksha. These two remember. Then the next quarter, second quarter of the mantra, anyatra asmat krita akrita. So that breakup has to be done. Anyatra asmat krita akrita. So krita means it's derived from the root kr, which means to do some action. So that same root kr is the root for the word karma, action. And kritam therefore means that which is a product of some karma, right? And therefore krita here has to be understood as some karyam, some cause, some product, some not cause, some effect, some product. Kritam is the effect, the product, and akritam means that which is not the effect, which means the cause. So this particular meaning, on the face of it, you cannot derive. So you look at Shankara. Shankara gives the meaning. He says kritam means karyam, that which is the product. And because of the usage of the word kritam over here, akritam has to be taken that which is not the karyam, so which means the karanam, the cause. And kritam is therefore what? Anatma, the universe. The entire universe is kritam. And therefore akritam is what? What is the cause of the entire universe? The upadana karanam for the universe is what?
Maya.
Maya. Upadana karanam, material cause of the universe is Maya. And then if you take kritam as the universe, you have to take akritam as Maya, the cause of the universe. And therefore, when he says anyatra asmat krita kritat, he says this Atma is beyond kritam and beyond akritam also. Means the Atma is beyond the product, which is the universe. At the same time, it is beyond the cause of the universe, which is Maya. Upadana karanam also it is not. And therefore, Atma is both beyond the universe and beyond Maya also. And that is why very often in Shastram, you will hear the definition, Brahman is Karana Karya Vilakshanam. Karanam means the cause, Maya. Karyam means the product, Jagat, the universe. Vilakshanam means it is different from both. Very, very famous definition. Brahman or Atma is always Karana Karya Vilakshanam. That is the second part. in the question. That Brahman, that entity which is beyond Maya and the universe. So two things he has said so far. That entity, that Atma which is beyond Papam and beyond Punyam. That Atma which is beyond Maya and beyond Jagat. And then he gives a third part of it. Anyatra bhutaha bhavyacha. So bhutaha means the past. Bhavya means the future. And we have to supply here Vartamanam. It is the present also. And therefore we have to say Atma, which is beyond the past, beyond the future, and beyond the present also. And those of you who have gone for Shivani's Vishnu Shastram classes, there is a phrase there. Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. Right? Prabhu means what? The one who is master of, the one who is beyond. And therefore Prabhu Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat. The one who is beyond the three time frames, past, present, and future. Not affected by the three time frames. And yet tat pasyashi tat pad. Right? And therefore tell me all that you see about this. And as we know, another name for Yamraja is what? Kala, time. And therefore Kala here has to be taken as time. And when we say that Atma is Kala Atitaha, beyond time, this is what it is. It's beyond the Bhuta Bhavya Bhavata. That Atma is not affected by the past, not affected by the present, not affected by the future. Why? Because it is a very substratum of all the three time frames. Time itself is born when Srishti is born. Before Srishti, only Atma and Maya remain. So this is his question. Okay. A very, very beautiful way of putting the question, almost completely describing the Atma. Okay, now we will chant the 15th mantra. So please unmute yourself. Sarve Veda Yat Padamamananti
Sarve Veda Yat Padamamananti
Tapagamsi Sarvani Chayad Vadanti
Tapagamsi Sarvani Chayat Vadanti
Tapagamsi Sarvani Chayad Vadanti
Tapagamsi Sarvani Chayat Vadanti
Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti
Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti
Tatte Padagam Sangrahena Bravimyo Mityetat
Tatte Padagam Sangrahena Bravimyo Mityetat
Tatte Padagam Sangrahena Bravimyo Mityetat
Tatte
Padagam
Padagam Sangrahena Bravimyo Mityetat
Okay. So here you have to come back to Yamaraj Ovacha. Nachiketa has finished his question and Yamaraj is now beginning to reply. Okay, so he says, Sangrahena Bravimi. So that last word, Bravim Yom Ityetat, has to be broken up properly. It is Bravimi Om Iti Etat. So Tatte Padagam Sangrahena Bravimi Om Ityetat. So in some people, some chanting from some acharyas, you will hear the full thing said. Tatte Padagam Sangrahena Bravimi Om Ityetat. Which is more clear. So you can choose which one you want. So the actual word is a combined word. Bravim Yom Ityetat. But anyway, I'll leave it to you all. So it says Sangrahena Bravimi. I shall very briefly Te Tat Padam. I shall very briefly tell you Te Tat Padam. That Te is you. So Te Sangrahena Bravimi. I shall briefly tell you Tat Padam, that goal. Which goal? Yat Padam. That goal. Sarve Vedaha Amananti. All the Vedas talk about that goal. And Yat Vadanti. They lay down, they prescribe Sarvani Tapas. Sarvani Tapasam. Tapasam means austerities. Sarvani Tapasam. See, all the austerities they lay down. And Ichanti Charanti. Yat Icchanti, desiring to attain that goal of Brahman, Brahmacharyam Charanti. Many people practice Brahmacharya. Etat, what is that goal? Etat, it is Om Iti. Etat, it is Om Iti. Okay, so this is the breakup. So he says basically that I shall tell you very briefly about that goal which is mentioned by all the Vedas as the goal to be followed. And those who are desirous of pursuing that goal of attaining moksha, they practice brahmacharyam. And what is that goal? Om iti. That goal is one word, Om. So in the next three mantras, that is 15, 16 and 17, Yamaraj is introducing Omkara. Omkara is the most sacred mantra. Why? Because it is representative of the entire universe. Everything that is there can be covered by the word Om. And when we come to Mandukya Upanishad, we'll see a very exhaustive analysis. So it's a very versatile mantra, which can be used by students at all levels. Beginners can use it, middling students can use it, and advanced students can use it. So Taittiriya Upanishad, there's a section called Sikshavalli. It talks about, it says that Omkara can be used by even a Mandha Adhikari, means by a person who is a beginner also in the spiritual line. He can use it for what? For japa, right? And he says that this Mandha Adhikari, which is a brahmachari, can use the Omkara for japa together with a nama, the name. So Omkara has to be used by Mandha Adhikaris, which can be either a brahmachari beginner or a grahastha, but they have to use it with the Saguna Nama Rupa. Okay. And that you'll very often see that this is repeated in many, many parts of the scripture, that when you chant Omkara, if you are a grahastha or if you are a brahmachari who is beginning the path on that, then you should be using Om only with a Saguna Nama, which means something like Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, that way. But Omkara by itself, pure Omkara, is meant for sannyasi alone. So Omkara is supposed to be a very, very powerful mantra. And it's said that it can create Tivra Vairagyam. It can increase Vairagyam in exponential proportions. And therefore, if a Grahastha uses it, it is said that he will soon have a desire for sannyasa. And therefore, for the Grahastha, Shastra says, the traditional meaning is that Omkara should be toned down with a Saguna Nama Rupa. For a sannyasi, you can use pure Nirguna Omkara. And therefore, Shankara uses two different sets of words when he talks about it. So he says Om Shabda Vachyam. That Om Shabdam, that Om word reveals what? Two things. It reveals the Nirguna Brahman for Nirguna enquiry. So Om Shabda Vachyam, that is the word, that is the phrase he uses. The word Om can be used for Nirguna enquiry, for inquiring into Nirguna Brahman. That is one usage of the words. And he says also that Om is Om Shabda Pratikam. Pratik is a symbol. So it can be used as a symbol also. And when you use a symbol, it's a alambanam, right? It's a symbol. When you use a symbol, that symbol is always what? Saguna Brahman. You take a Shivaling, you take a Krishna statue, anything that you use, Salagramam you take, these are all Pratikam, physical symbols. And so Shankara himself is pointing out that you can use it in two different ways, that Om. Use it as a word for enquiry, which is meant by Nirguna Brahman enquiry. So Om enquiry without a symbol is Jnana. You are inquiring into the meaning of Om, and that we'll see in Mandukya Upanishad. Or you can use it as a symbol for Saguna Brahman Upasana, for meditating upon Saguna Brahman. You can have a Shivalingam, you can have a Saligramam, you can have Krishna statue, anything. So Om Shabda Pratikam can use a sound symbol for the Upasana also. Now here, how do we understand it? Omkara can serve as Pratikam, as a symbol for Upasana, for meditation. This is for a Mandha Madhyama Adhikari, the person who is a beginner or the person who is slightly advanced. And you can use the symbol either as your Ekarupa Ishvara, your Ishtadevata can be the symbol, or you can have Vishwarupa Ishvara also, right? So Omkara, when used as Pratikam, is a symbol. The Omkara itself is a symbol for Saguna Ishvara meditation. For the Uttama Adhikari, for the advanced sadhaka, the same Omkara is available, but not in the form of a pratik, not in the form of a sound symbol. It is in the form of a word for enquiry. So at that level, you have to enquire into Omkara. And by enquiring into Omkara, what is the net result? I can know the Nirguna Brahman. And this is what Yamraj says. Tatte padam sangrahena bravimi. I shall tell you about that Atma through the smallest word possible. And what is that? Because he says sangrahena bravimi. I will tell you very short what that enquiry is. And he lives up to his promise and says, Om. That enquiry is into the one syllable mantra Om. So that is Atma, therefore, is revealed by the word Om. And therefore, he talks about the glory of the word of the Omkara. He says, Sarve Veda Yat Padam Amananti. Not only I am talking about the Om, but all the Vedas. All the Vedas means Karma Kanda, Upasana Kanda, Jnana Kanda. All of them talk about this Omkara. It is the Tatparyam of all the Vedas. It is the essence of all the Vedas. It is that which is to be attained through the study of the Vedas. And not only that, Tapamsi Sarvani Chayad Vadanti. All the various types of austerities, tapas, prescribed in the scriptures, Sarvani Tapasamsi, all the austerities prescribed in all the Vedas, they also ultimately come to the Atma alone. How do we know? Because Vedas, remember the Vedas, no Veda has very explicitly mentioned Chitta Shuddhi as a product of the ritual. On the other hand, the Karma Kanda explicitly mentions various material benefits of various rituals, various karma, various upasana, explicitly mentioned are these are the results. But it says that you can do it without the explicit invocation of the mantra or the homam for a result. And you have to supply that when you do not explicitly make a sankalpa saying that I am doing this ritual for this purpose, then is there a benefit or not? Because it's a karma. Any karma has to have a karma phalam. So when you specifically invoke in any karma, you can specifically invoke saying that this is the result for which I am doing. This is the karma phalam for which I am doing the homam. That is one way. And those explicit results are mentioned in the Karma Kanda very specifically. So this particular homam, this particular result, all those things are mentioned. But if you don't do the invocation, then it becomes Nishkama Karma. Karma without a specific invocation, without a specific wish. And since no karma can go without results, then the Acharyas say that then because the karma has to have a result, and you have not done some sort of a sankalpa asking for something, the result will still be there. And that result will be in the form of Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi is a product of rituals where a Nishkama Bhava is maintained, where you are not explicitly asking for something. So he says, Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti. Yeah, of course, desiring which? Desiring this objective, this Vedic students, the Brahmachari, he walks the path of Brahman. So here Brahmachari is not a bachelor. Brahma here means Brahman. Charanti means to walk the path. So the one who walks the path of Brahman, Brahman Charanti, that is a Brahmachari. So Chari is the lifestyle of the student. The one whose lifestyle is conducive to the study of Veda, he is a Brahmachari. And all these studies are meant for what? Yat Icchanti. Those people desiring to know the Atma alone. They are all meant for such a person only. Now we look at verse number 16. So please unmute yourself and we can chant mantra 16. Etad yevaksharam brahma.
एतद्देवाक्षरं ब्रह्म
Etad vevaksharam param.
एतद्देवाक्षरं परम्
परम्
Etad yevaksharam gyatva.
एतद्देवाक्षरं
देवाक्षरं
ज्ञात्वा
ज्ञात्वा
Yo yadicchati tasya tat.
यो यदच्छति तस्य तत्
तस्य तत्
Okay. So now he is giving a definition. So he says etad aksharam eva. So you have to break that. Etad ya. That the ya becomes etad hi. Etad hi aksharam brahma. Etad aksharam param. Okay. And etad aksharam gyatva yaha yadicchati tasya tat. So etad aksharam eva. This syllable alone. Which syllable? Om. So etad aksharam eva brahma. That is the full breakup of the first quarter. Etad deva aksharam brahma has to be broken into etad eva aksharam brahma. This syllable alone, this om alone, is Brahman indeed. Etad eva aksharam brahma. This om syllable, that alone is Brahma. And etad eva aksharam param. This om syllable also is param, higher Brahman. Okay, now a very important note which doesn't appear in this mantra. The two first quarter and second quarter are almost identical. Okay. So what he is saying is that etad evaksharam brahma, etad evaksharam param. So if you have to make that a proper sentence, you have to say etad evaksharam aparam brahma and etad eva aksharam param brahma. So that you have to supply for it to make sense. Otherwise, in the first quarter, there is a reference to Brahman. In the second quarter, there is a reference to Param. But because there is a reference to Param, Param is the higher nature of Brahman. And if you give Param as the higher nature of Brahman, then the other nature, the Aparam Brahman, has to be taken as the first quarter. So the complete understanding will be Etad Aksharam Eva Hi Brahma. This indeed is the Aparam Brahma, and Etad Aksharam Eva Hi Param Brahma. This indeed is also the higher Brahman, and Etad Jnatva, having meditated upon what? Etad Eva Aksharam. On this very symbol, Yat Tat Ichhati Tasya Hi. Whatever one desires, Tasya Hi, he becomes that indeed. Tasya Tat Bhavati. So whatever one desires, he becomes that. So very beautiful little verse. This Om symbol is indeed the lower Brahman. This Om symbol is also indeed the higher Brahman. And if you meditate upon this symbol, you will become whatever you desire. Okay. So in these two verses, Yamraj is talking about three different usages, applications of Omkara. So Etad Eva Aksharam. As I said before, Etad Eva Aksharam Aparam Brahma. This Omkara is a symbol of Saguna Brahman. What is Saguna Brahman? Brahman with various attributes. The Shivling is there, the Saligramam is there, Krishna statue is there, Ganesha statue is there. All these are Etad Eva Aksharam Aparam Brahma. And what are they used for? Can be used for Saguna Ishvara Upasana. Meditation upon Ishvara with attributes. So Aparam. Aparam is Saguna. And we have to understand that Om can be used for as a alambanam, as a support for Saguna Brahman Upasana. And you can either worship at the Eka Rupa level, Eka Rupa Devata level, either at Shivalingam or, as I said, at Saligramam. But what Yamraj indicates is probably pointing out that it can be Saguna Brahma Upasana upon Virat or Hiranyagarbha also. So the Om can be used for Upasana as a symbol on which, what do you mean by Alambanam, the symbol? So Alambanam, the symbol is that on which you invoke the Lord, right? So when you do meditation on the Shivalingam, basically the Shivalingam is only a piece of stone. It is not the piece of stone that you are worshipping. Before you start the worship, you invoke Lord Shiva onto the stone. That invocation makes that stone sacred. Just like when you stand up and salute the flag, national flag, you are not saluting a piece of paper, a piece of cloth. You are saluting the concept of the nation which has been invoked upon that flag. Similarly, on this Alambanam, which is Om, the symbol, the verbal symbol is Om. On that verbal symbol, you can invoke either Virat or Hiranyagarbha. And therefore, you can do the worship. And then he says, Etat eva aksharam param. This is also Nirguna Brahma. If you are an advanced student who does not want to do Saguna Brahma Upasana, either on Virat or Hiranyagarbha, because you have realized that Virat and Hiranyagarbha are also within samsara only. How do we know that Virat and Hiranyagarbha are within samsara? Lord Brahmaji is within samsara or not? How do we know? What is the proof?
There is a time period.
There is a time period.
Mahapralaya.
Mahapralayam, Brahmaloka also gets destroyed, and therefore Hiranyagarbha also gets destroyed. And therefore it is within samsara. It is not that only the seven worlds, our worlds are within samsara. Brahmaloka is also within samsara. So if you have understood that, then there's no point in spending your life worshipping a temporary entity, and therefore you will go to Nirgunam Brahman. Therefore, Etat eva aksharam paramam. Nirguna Brahman I want to go to. And here it is not Omkara Upasana. Here it is Omkara Vichara, enquiry into Om. And therefore, for that enquiry also, Om is the symbol. Nirguna Brahman. And therefore, Shankara writes, this Om becomes Vachakam, that which reveals. How does it reveal? Through the prakriya which you know, through the methodology which we know, Adhyaropa Apavada, superimposition and negation. Through this enquiry we know. And this enquiry is dealt with in very great detail in the Mandukya Upanishad, which when we come to, we will see. Therefore, here Yamaraj is saying that either you follow Saguna Upasana or you follow Omkara Vichara. And if you do that, Yadichati Tasya Tat. Whatever you desire can be obtained. Saguna Upasana can be practiced for what purposes? For worldly benefits. That is one way. But Saguna Upasana can also be practiced for what we know as Krama Mukti. Chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, if you remember, there is, you do karma and upasana, and then you go to Brahmaloka, then you go and learn Vedanta from Lord Brahmaji himself, and then when Lord Brahmaji gets Videha Mukti, that is when Mahapralayam comes, you will also get Videha Mukti, you will also get moksha. That is one, that particular process is called Krama Mukti, sequential Mukti. Of course, I added in our Gita classes that it is not something which we want to focus on. We want to focus on Jivan Mukti. And Shankara adds over there, Aparam Chet. Supposing, Aparam Chet. Chet means if. Aparam. So if your objective is Brahmaloka, if your objective is to go to heaven or Brahmaloka, that means your objective is what? Saguna Brahma Upasana. So he says, Aparam Chet Praptavyam. If you are going to do Saguna Brahma Upasana, then there is Praptavyam. You must do the rituals. There is a Kartavyam to do. You have to do the rituals. You have to actually do the rituals. Just knowing what the ritual is not going to get you to Brahmaloka. There in Karma Kanda, the knowledge is given in Karma Kanda, but the knowledge needs to be followed up with Karma. And therefore, any Upasana worshipper, anybody who wants to worship by way of Karma or Upasana, he has to get the knowledge from the Veda, and then he has to actually perform the ritual. Then only you can go to Brahma Loka. So if the seeker wants to get Saguna Brahma Phalam, karma is not sufficient. It must be followed by upasana with all the right mantras, the correct rituals, all the details which are laid down in the karma kanda must be followed. And not only that, throughout your life, you have to follow this and all the supporting disciplines. And not only that, that upasana must be practiced at the time of your death also. How do you know? Care of Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter. So this is what he means by aparam chet. Shankara says, if your objective is Saguna Brahma Ishvara, is Upasana, or Saguna Brahma Loka, then all the rituals need to be actually done by. But Param Chet, he says, if, however, Saguna Brahman is not your objective and Param Chet, Nirguna Brahman is your objective, then all you need to do, Jatavya. You have to acquire knowledge. And that knowledge need not be followed by anything else. Very, very important piece of information for us. For moksha, knowledge is sufficient. It need not be followed by anything else. But for Saguna Brahma Upasana, knowledge is not sufficient. You have to follow it up with karma. And now we will do one more verse for today. And this is the last verse before the teaching begins. The teaching actually begins in verse number 18. Before that, this is the last of Lord Yama's introductory speech. So let us look at verse number 17. We will chant. Etadalam managum shreshtam. Etadalam managum shreshtam. Etad alambanam param. Etad alambanam gyatva. Brahma loke mahiyate. Okay, so he says etad alambanam. So here he uses the word alambanam. Alambanam we have seen before, that in which you are invoking the Saguna Brahman or the Nirguna Brahman. So etad alambanam shreshtam. This Om, alambanam here is Om. This Om is the shreshtam, is the highest symbol that you can have. Alambanam shreshtam. And etad alambanam param. This is the symbol for Brahman, either the Saguna Brahman or the Nirguna Brahman. Gyatva, having meditated upon the symbol, which means having known, having inquired into the symbol. Etad alambanam. Etad alambanam gyatva. Having meditated or inquired into Om, what happens? Brahma loke mahiyate. One becomes a very adorable person in Brahma Loka. It requires a bit of explanation. The person is a way of glorifying this particular Omkara inquiry or Omkara meditation. Yamaraj is pointing out that Omkara is one of the greatest alambanam, greatest symbols possible for Brahman. Why? Because every other symbol, every other alambanam can represent only Saguna Brahman. While Omkara serves a dual purpose. It represents Saguna Brahman and it can also represent Nirguna Brahman. So Omkara can serve as a mantra for japa. That is your Omkara being used as a Saguna Brahma Alambana. It can be used as a symbol for Saguna Dhyanam or also as Saguna Upasana. All that is Saguna Brahma Alambana. Or you can use it as a symbol to be inquired into. And therefore it becomes a Nirguna Brahma symbol. Something to be inquired. What is that Omkara you need to inquire? So dual purpose it serves. And therefore he says, Etat Aksharam, Ekaksharam, Alambanam is Shreshtam. It is the best because not only does it inquire into Saguna Brahman, it can also give you the facility to inquire into Nirguna Brahman. And therefore, by proper use of this particular symbol, Etad Alambanam Gyatva, by properly inquiring into it. So this Etad Alambanam Gyatva appears only once in the mantra, but for understanding, you have to repeat it twice. So the first time you say etad alambanam gyatva, you are saying, having used this Om symbol for Brahma Upasana, you will become glorified in Brahma Loka. Brahma Loka Mahiyate. You as a sadhaka will be looked upon with great respect in Brahma Loka. Then you read it again. Etad alambanam gyatva. And this time, when you say etad alambanam gyatva, you are using that Om symbol for Nirguna Brahma enquiry. So by Upasana, where do you go? Brahma Loka. By Jnanam, where do you go? You become Nirguna Brahma. The gist of these verses, of these three verses, is that the Omkara is an extremely powerful mantra capable of giving different types of results to different types of seekers. And therefore, etad alambanam gyatva Brahma loke mahiyate. Having inquired, having used this Omkara for either Saguna Upasana or Nirguna enquiry, one goes into Brahma Loka. And again, as I said, the word gyatva will take two meanings. The first time, the meaning will be Upasana. The second time, the meaning will be enquiry. And having dependent upon this, whichever way you go, one is that you will have Krama Mukti. If you are taking this Omkara as Upasana, then what is the route? You go to Brahma Loka, you go to Brahmaji, you learn from him and then get Mukti. But if you use Omkara as a symbol of enquiry, then you get Jivan Mukti. Either way, you get Mukti. In one, the route is Krama Mukti. In one, the route is Sadhyo Mukti. So I don't know if you have used the word Sadhyo Mukti earlier. You have used Jivan Mukti earlier. Sadhyo Mukti, the word Sadhya means immediate, instant. So Sadhya Mukti is instant Mukti, or in Mukti in this particular life is equal to Jivan Mukti. So that word you must remember, Krama Mukti is one and Jivan Mukti or Sadhya Mukti is another. So depending upon which meaning of Gyatva you take. If you take Upasana, you get Krama Mukti. If you take enquiry, you get Sadhya Mukti. And having done that, Brahma Bhutaha, in both cases, you become one with Brahman. Mahiyate, having merged with Brahman. So he says, having merged with Brahman, what happens? He becomes an object of worship. This is the meaning. And here again, if you're looking at Gyatva as the Upasana doing work, then the Upasaka becomes very, very glorified in Brahmaloka because of that major Upasana which he has done. Everybody in Brahmaloka worships him. So, Mahiyate, he becomes an object of Upasana in Brahmaloka. Again, as I said, we are divide Brahma into two, depending upon the sadhana. If it is Upasana, he is worshipped by all Saguna Upasakas, by Kramamukti seekers. If he choose the Nirguna Ishvara, Nirguna Brahman, then he merges into Brahman and is worshipped by Nirguna Brahma Upasakas. Either way, in Brahmaloka, he becomes object of great worship. In one case, he is worshipped by people who are seeking Kramamukti. In the other cases, he is worshipped by people who are seeking Sadhyo Mukti or Jivan. With this, the introductory part is over. And with the next verse, the 18th mantra, the teaching actually begins, which we will see in the next class. Any questions? I am open.
Om Raviji, in the 16th verse, did you say 3 uses of Omkara, or did I hear it wrong? Because one you said Saguna Brahman, second you said was Nirguna. Did I hear that wrong? That there are 3 usages.
I can't hear you properly, Vinitaji. You have to talk louder.
Okay. So, Om Raviji, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So in verse 16, you mentioned 3 usages of Omkara. One you said Saguna, second was Nirguna. Did I not hear the third, or did you not mention it? I just want to know.
No, one is the use as Saguna Brahman.
Yes.
And that you can take as usage of Saguna Brahman for going up to various levels of of your what you call upasana, but
Right.
not to Brahma Loka. Then one you
Correct.
can use as worship on Hiranyagarbha or Virat and movement to Brahma Loka, and one you can use as your enquiry.
Nirguna. Thank you.
Raviji.
Yes, June.
So when I'm teaching my yoga classes and I teach meditation, because like I cannot give initiation to mantra, it is said that a universal mantra is Om before the students get like a personal mantra for the Ishta Devata. So I just, because Om is more universal, I just tell them like for now, you can like just do meditation with Om mantra, but since it doesn't have the Ishta Devata attached to it, it's the pure form of Om. But in today's class, it's not very much recommended by the scriptures to meditate on the pure Om. So is there
Unless
any
you're
other?
a sannyasi. You can be mental sannyasi, it's fine.
Yes, they are grihastas.
Yeah, so basically it is meant to generate a lot of dispassion, and therefore, since grahasthas are required in this world, otherwise sannyasis won't get food, right? Grahasthas are the one who give food to sannyasis, and therefore we say that ideally when you start as a grahastha, you should have a rupa with you. One name should be there with you. That's why you'll find that in most of the mantras in the ashram, it is with the name. Very few we use nirguna. Very few.
So it would be recommended then to give them the list of mantras with the deities attached, like Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And all
Best
this.
to do that. Best to do that. Once
so
they have decided that they are going to be sannyasis, then they can just drop the names, name and form, which anyway is the sequence, right? You start with name and form, then drop names and form.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, then we can stop for today. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Sure, Raviji.